Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Living in Fullness podcast. I am your lovely host, Naki Hlomai Muteto. So I thought I should pump myself up a little bit today. So I'm really excited about today's episode. But first things first, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. If it's your first time here, Living in Fullness is all about people sharing their amazing journeys, experiences, and stories. So you're definitely on the right platform. Today, I am excited. I feel like I'm always excited about my episodes, but they each carry a different, they bring a different element, to the podcast as well. So I'm excited about today's one because my guest comes from a place of, he grew up in a disadvantaged home and he got to a point where he went to amazing schools, but also got to see that difference between the less privileged and the privileged children, which sort of shaped him into this competitive person, who is driven by trying to prove his worth and trying to find his role in this world. So help me in welcoming my amazing guest, Vusi Kokela.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you.
Sure.
Thank you so much for coming through. So I was going to read his amazing bio, because it's long, it's beautiful, it's a lot of impactful things that you're doing out there.
Sure.
So I'll let you introduce yourself before
Sure.
we get into the icebreakers.
All right. So my name is Vusi Kokela. I live in Cullinan, which is in the northern east of Pretoria. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm not sure what else to share, but basically I'm an author and a speaker and a life coach. So I normally say I do two things, right, which can be done in many various ways, but I always try to do two things, which is help people build capacity.
Yes.
And from that part of building capacity, we then move to either creating content, writing a book, whichever way you want to create content, a message, a coaching business. So that's basically what I'm doing currently.
Love it. Did you bring any of your books?
No.
What book did you write?
So my first book, well, the published ones, I have two
Yeah.
published ones. The first one that was really not two that were not published were poetry books.
Okay.
The one that I published was REMAPS, which is an acrostic for relationships, education, motivation, abilities, personalities, and spiritual gifts. And we say those are an ensemble that you bring together to discover who you truly are and how you can be of impact to this world. And then the recent one that's launching on the 16th or 15th of March is called Conqueror's Creed. And it's basically about how we can all overcome our inner giants. Yeah.
Interesting. I love
Sure.
it. I'll definitely read one of those. I'm actually trying to read more this year because last year was a mess. Yeah, so before
Sure.
we get into the episode as well, I want us to do some icebreakers just to cool us down a little bit. But just start with, what's the first thing that you do in the morning when you wake up?
Oh, okay. I always do my devotions in the morning when I wake up.
Okay.
So it will be reading either a morning devotion or the Bible. But I always do my devotions in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
A quote that you live by.
Ooh, okay. Sure, there's quite a lot of them, but I think one that has never really left me is, I don't know who it's by, but a friend shared it in high school, and it goes something like, only those who will dare going far will know how far they can go.
Ooh, okay.
And I always push myself because of that quote, because I'm like, maybe there's more. Maybe I can go further.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Lastly, someone you look up to and why?
Oh, sure. Are you sure these are icebreakers?
They are icebreakers. Okay, they're also like us trying to get to know you.
Sure, they're
I wasn't going to ask you your favorite food or favorite color.
Okay, yeah. All right, so someone that I look up to, current one will be Myron Golden.
Okay.
Basically because I am a believer, a Christian, and he's also one. But what I love about him is that he uses the Bible to find concepts for everyday life, especially business. So it's not just religious and something that people cannot apply. So that's what I love about him, because even my business concepts, my philosophies, are taken from the Holy Book.
I love it. And I think it's making the Bible relatable, right? Because we don't realize that there is a lot that's in the Bible that relates to what's happening in the world now. 100%. So I think when we just speak about the theology side of the word, people that don't know Christ are like, it's too much. But when you make it relatable, it makes it easier.
Agreed.
Yeah, but you did well with the icebreakers. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay,
so I always say this to my guests. When I'm having topics like we're speaking about today, it's always important to understand the early memories you have of your childhood. Because I believe so much about the childhood, and like the child in us always being still the person that we are today. It's just that this is the adult version of the child in you. So what is it, what are some of the earliest memories you have of yourself as a child, and how have they shaped the Vusi that we see today?
Okay. Sure. I have a couple of ones. One is we lived in a rural, in a farm. My mom and dad were farm workers. What we had, though, was quite a bigger yard, because my dad was one of the longest serving people in that farm. So he had quite a piece. They gave him quite a piece of space. And so we were able to plant our own vegetable garden, have our own chickens. And part of my early memories is just waking up in the morning to, feed the chickens and to go to the garden and get some crops for the day. So those are some of my early memories that shape who I am today. And then a little bit later on, when I started school, I then have some, I wouldn't call them horrific, but they were traumatic in a way, because then coming from the farm and coming to a township, I always was sort of odd. You get teased for being a farm boy, and also in the farm we did not have your ECD, so that also stunted a little bit, delayed my understanding or my comprehension when we got to school. So I got there. Some of the kids were, who started in an ECD or whatever preschool education were way ahead, and I could remember my teachers not understanding why I can't do ABCDs or some sounds or side words. So those for me then began to make me a little bit reserved and not want to speak, because here I am coming from a home where it was very easy for me to express myself in the farm and, talk about animals and crops. And now I get to school, we are talking about ABCs and I know nothing about it. And I was like, okay, maybe I do not fit in. Maybe I need to withdraw. It took a lot for me to get to a place where I'm the speaker that I am, I'm the author that I am today. But I think those two are some of my earliest memories that I think shaped who I am today.
Okay, let's speak about the fact that you say it took a lot for you to get to the person that you are today. What are some of the things that you had to do that made you become a speaker? Because if you're saying, actually, have you always wanted to be a speaker, looking at your background?
No, I haven't always wanted to be a speaker, but I actually realized that, hey, I think I'm good at this. It's not something I wanted to do.
Okay.
It's something that when I looked back, whenever I discovered, I was like, hey, they asked me to speak here. Hey, they asked me to address these people here. Why are all these people asking me, right? And I said, maybe there's something to it, and let's develop it. So that's how I sort of discovered, right? It was more like stumbling into it. Yeah.
And how did you build the confidence to get to speak? Because you're coming from a place where you feel you were being mocked for your background and for the fact that you couldn't even say certain things that other kids could say, like vowels, A, B, C, D, your alphabet and stuff. So how did you get to build that confidence?
I'm glad you're asking this question today, because I think a couple of months back, I wouldn't have told you how I was able to build it. I was able to build it, but I think I did not know how it was done until I read a book. And this guy speaks about 4 levels of leadership, and not leadership, rather confidence. And he speaks about confidence being a ladder with 4 rungs. And he says one of those rungs is courage. One of those rungs is also capabilities. And I think I'm forgetting one of the rungs, but the first 3 leads to the 4th. And looking back, I'm like, hey, I actually had to develop some level of courage here, right? To say, look, I don't want to stay here. I want to make something of my life, and I'm going to have to do it, and I'm going to have to do it afraid. I'm going to have to do it, and I'm going to have to do it even if people might laugh. And I remember I don't know if I should call it a teaching or a preaching by one of my teachers in assembly, high school teachers. She came in and she said, you guys, whatever that your mind tells you to do, you just do it. And she said, it's like your mantra is the Nike mantra. You just do it. You just do it. And it was in the negative sense, right? But I took that in the positive, and I said, what if I just did it? What if I just do it? And that has been one of my mantras. And also then I used also the background of coming from the farms where a lot of things were messy. The tractor just died and it got left there. The chicken, whatever, or because there were also, it was a pig farm. It was smelly and it was bad in a way. So I thought, but the guys there, were quite profitable. And I said, profitability is a messy game. And I have to accept that it's not going to come out good all the time. I have to accept that not everyone's going to love it all the time. So that, I think that then reminded me to say, hey, just do it. If they laugh, that's okay. Think of that tractor that just died while they were working and it got left there. Think of the weeds that are growing. And that's how I was able, I think, to grow in confidence. But the other thing with confidence is then that the more you do it, those small wins. Yeah, but it has to start from a place where you are willing to do it messy, to do it ugly, and to keep on building.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's the fear that pushes you to strive to know how to do it better.
Sure.
Like if you're too confident, sometimes you're not willing to learn and you're not willing to upskill yourself and see where the gaps are. But I think if you're scared, you realize there's a lot of learning that you need as well. And then you upskill yourself and you become better that way. So I'm glad that you didn't use the fear as I shouldn't do this, but you used it as I'm just going to start anyway, with fear or not.
Yeah. Well, at some point you realize, man, I can't live in the shadows anymore. Because one part of my life is me always withdrawing, always hiding. And then the one part of my life is me thinking, but until when? Until when? I'm sure there's more to my life than this, Then you begin to get out of those shadows bit by bit. But as you do it consistently, then that builds confidence, you know. Yeah.
But let's talk about the school you went to.
Sure.
Because I know when we were having a conversation offline, you did speak about the fact that you felt the school was more, how can I say, it was better
Sure.
than what your life looked like, right?
Sure.
It's like there was more privileged children at the school than the disadvantaged background you felt you were coming from.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, thanks to my mom, she always wanted to take me to the best school. And up to today, I don't know how she managed to pay for the schools that she took me to, but, you know, mothers, superhumans, yeah. Anyway, so grade 1 up to grade 7, I go to the township school. We do Isipedi and English. So Isipedi is then the first language. But my mom is always saying, look, I want to take you to a better school. So she's working towards that. High school, she then takes me to an Afrikaner school in Cullinan. It's the only different high school, or it's the only, we have only 2 high schools in Cullinan. You either have the township, the high school in the township, or the high school in the city, in the town, and it's Afrikaans.
Okay.
So she takes me to that, Gecombineerde Cullinan. So, yeah, that's where then I'm like, hey, what's happening here? You know, because all the other kids that are there that are my skin tone and complexion are rich, because for them to be there, they have to afford to pay the school fees that I can't afford, right? So I'm looking at myself and I'm like, this is a challenge. So here I am, grade 1 up until grade 4, I am in the background. Grade 5, 6, and 7, I'm starting to come out because I'm getting used to people, I'm getting used to the place. Then my mom throws me back into the deep end. It's like I have to start over now because, yeah, I just...
Like you thought you had found yourself, and then now you're going back to your shell.
Right,
it's a different environment.
because in grade 6 and 7, that's where I started to see, maybe I can speak, because my teachers are now asking me to say, hey, we have a visitor, can you come speak on behalf of the kids? Hey, we have this event going on, can you come and thank our guest? So there's a level of pride now to say, hey,
I know this.
You know, I'm somebody now, right? Then I get moved to another school. I'm nobody again. Right? So those moments for me, I don't know if humbling is the right word, but were moments, yeah, they just set me back. I think it was a setback in a way, because, yeah, I just remembered again that, hey, I'm different. I do not fit here. I mean, one of the instances, there are 2 again in my high school journey. One of them is, now and then, I think twice a month, we would have what was called casual day. And it's either I did not go to school, or I had to wear my toughies, my school shoes. And I hated that. I hated that because everyone else comes now with Pumas and Nikes and Adidas, like, you know. Or you have to repeat the same T-shirt, you know. So that's the background I came from. And then the other thing is, we lived in sort of an informal settlement, and coming back with other kids who, you know, their home is a double story and yours is a shack and whatever. Getting off the public transport for me was not a joy. Because then everyone's like, "Oh, you live there in that," you know? And I remember, you know, asking my mom to say, "Get me off that public transport. I mean, the school transport. I'll take taxis.
Sure.
I'll come back home." But that in itself also taught me how to get around. You know, how to fend for myself, because now I didn't depend on this transport that picked me up at the school gate and dropped me off at home. Yeah, so basically that's a little bit, and that also, by the way, also happened in varsity. Because then I'm like, okay, I come from a good school. I passed quite well, exemption, distinction. I'm going to apply University of Pretoria, TUT, all the,
prestigious ones.
Well, in a way, I guess. But what I thought was, there are quite a lot of other people here from the township that I know. My friends, some of my friends are going to University of Pretoria. So let's go, Here's the funniest thing. I was not accepted in either of them. TUT called me to come and write some test, which I know I did well. But still, I remember this guy saying, you did well, but all of you did well, the whole class. So we can only take so few.
So what criteria then did they use?
I don't know. And I remember one friend saying to me again, some rich kid whose parents could afford, saying, there's a varsity college in mainland. My dad is taking us to apply there. Would you like to come?
Okay.
And we went and we applied. In that time, because today everyone almost can afford some of these things, but that time, varsity college was quite steep, quite expensive. I remember my fees were like for a year close to 40,000, and today maybe that's what varsities cost, but back in 2006 that was like,
I see. And was that just tuition?
Yeah, that was just tuition, right? So that was quite expensive. Yeah. So I go to that school now. In high school again, just when I was about grade 11 to grade 12, again, I'm getting chosen to speak. I'm doing public speaking. Then varsity again, I get there and I'm like, which one is this one now? You hear that boy is the president's nephew or whatever. You hear that boy, the guy who runs all the ZCC churches, that he's his son. You see, I'm like, but
who am I? And where do I fit in?
Yeah.
I think that's really it's hard. I think it's a thin line as well between a parent trying to give their child the best that they can give them, and also a parent trying to know if they should just take their child to where they would belong and not feel less of a person. So yes, you can get all the good education, but you can come out with the traumas that in your case you probably came out with. How do you think going to this type of schools or being in such an environment made you feel in terms of how you view success and privilege? Do you still view it the same way, or did you have sort of a resentment towards it?
Sure. That's a good question. So for me, I think it's beginning to serve me now later in my years. But earlier on in my life, it became something that I saw as something for them and not for us. You know that type of a thing where I just began to build a wall and say, there's something that's for them because of their parents, because of where they live, and I just have to have the reality and accept who I am. And that's something, bless the Lord for my dad, but my dad also, tried to help me and to save me, because often I'd come home depressed and stressed, and he would say to me, stop going to their events, stop going with those boys, because then, you are not like them, right? And it does not come from a bad place. This is a parent really trying to say, I see how these things always affect you, but I want you to stop. And my mom on the other side is saying, you go, that's the way. So I was always torn between the two. But now, in hindsight, looking back, I'm like, that's where I actually learned to always swim and not sink, right? Ooh. Because all the time I had to say, but how do I keep, like, for example, in high school, there were times where, what's this thing when you default payments and you are called to the office and then the next thing they send you home and you have to stay home because your parents, that used to really embarrass me. And I'd have to come back and say, no, I was sick. Oh, no. You know? But anyway, here's what happened, right? And maybe that's why I fought to be one of the best speakers when it comes to public speaking in school, when it comes to debate and doing poetry, because I had to find something that I felt the school had to need me, right? So I did everything. I played rugby, I played soccer, I played hockey, I did review. I was one of the only kids that tried everything to find myself, because I said, if I can find something that I do so well, I know they won't send me home because they need me for the athletics, they need me for the debate. And that's why towards the end, like your grade 11 and 12, I was always a little bit more popular, a little bit more active, because then towards that time, I had found that thing. So in varsity, it was the same thing.
Okay.
Towards the end of my studies, I'd found that I'm quite good with this poetry thing. You know, I'm quite good with representing the school, and I need to do this so well that I'm not sent home for defaulting in my payments. So that's the attitude now. Looking back, I'm like, this is what's serving me even in business. This is what's serving me even in relationships. I'm like, I have to do so well. I have to show up, or otherwise I sink. Otherwise I default. And so that's how, or in hindsight, it has built me.
Sure, that's amazing. I told you all that today is going to be amazing. But, you know, I think when I'm looking at this as well, when I'm looking at what you said about your dad, that he would sit you down and say, maybe don't attend the events, I think it's hard to think about how do you even start a conversation with a child on classism? You know what I'm saying? What do you say? Because you also do not want to bring ideas in their head that they probably don't have yet, but you also want them to understand that it exists, right? There are classes, and that there's for lack of it, like the less privileged, the very disadvantaged. There's people that are middle class, then there's the wealthy people. So it's like, how do you start defining those things? So if you're thinking about some of those things, would you have preferred, okay, besides now that you see the advantages it had, right? Would you have preferred to go to a school in the township rather than going to a school, like a prestigious school?
Sure. Oh, wow. Oh, sure. That's a good question. Yes and no. Yes and no. On the one side, I think the good schools sort of, even though I fought, I feel like I did not fight like the boys in my township school fought. And I'll make an example for you. So if I'm punching at a certain weight or at a certain level in a good school or in a good environment, I feel like I'm doing well. But because of the resources and everything that I have, I might not be punching and doing as hard as someone else who doesn't even have a science lab, for example, because then I had my cousins, you know, who still went to the township school that did not have a science lab, did not have a chess board. So I think for them, they fought even harder. Yes, there was a character in me that I want to come up, but I see now when I look at some of them who are way ahead, I think they had to overcome so much more than me, right? So in a sense, I'm thinking I would have been there and I would have felt like, yes, I belong and everyone, we are the same. But I probably would have also said, I want to get out of this place. I don't want to always be here. So in a sense, that would have still developed a fight in me. However, for the men that, and the purpose that I have, because my work is really to, again, help people build capacity and create, whether it's a message that they want to create, whether it's a business that they want to build. I think it's good that I went to the schools that I went to, because then it shaped who I am today. So maybe I wouldn't have changed anything, but I think from both worlds and both schools, I would have still found a way to make it work. Yeah.
I think it was amazing, honestly, that your parents worked hard to take you to these prestigious schools. I think it was amazing. I mean, the reality of the world is no one is going to be babying you. You're not going to always be around people that believe in what you believe in. So I think it better prepared you for the real world.
I agree.
So you were not stuck in a bubble. So now let's fast forward, right, and see some of the impacts that this had in the adult Vusi, right? So you've gone into, you've got to this prestigious schools, you felt like you don't belong, you've always had to fight to prove yourself. How did this impact the adult in you?
Work ethic, depression, depressed most of the time, showing up with a smile even though you feel like no one wants me to be here. Sick most of the time because I'm not sleeping. I have to show up. I have to be needed, because if I am not needed, I'm sent back home. So that emotionally messes you up. So I'm depressed half the time, but also I'm working 3 times, if not 4 times more than someone else, because you have other boys whose fathers are in the SGB and they speak for them, and you work hard, you deserve it, but you don't get the sport because your parents don't, sponsor the school, So yeah, it was hard. And I remember my first employment working for a local radio station. I remember not going home and sleeping on the stairs because I just developed an unhealthy work ethic, because I worked until late and I don't have my own transport to go home. So I sleep on the stairs because we worked up until 8. Wake up in the morning before the morning drive comes in so that they don't see you slept on the stairs. And you need to then work in the day. So that always made me, somehow I always, because of that work ethic, always found myself being chosen to lead something from a very young age. But my heart, like now, literally my heart, could not stand that, because I'm not resting, I'm not sleeping. I had heart challenges, but also then I'm depressed. When I went further to work elsewhere, within a year or 2, I was always able to find myself in a executive position or some leadership position. But then again, as quickly as I found myself in that place, it is as quick as I found myself at the clinic or at the doctor's room, either having heart issues or having anxiety, or so that has been sort of how I've lived my life, and it even affected my relationships with women, you know, because it's just never available, man. With the women that I dated, it's just like I need to work. Like, but when do you spend time with us, guys? I'm always here, but I'm working, right? So with the woman that I have now, God bless her, you know, she's had to leave me and come back so many times because, yeah, of that.
Sure, hectic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with working hard, right? But if it's coming from a place of trying to prove yourself, it makes it different. You know, I think working hard, like naturally, I'm a hard worker. I'm ambitious. I'm a goal-getter. I'm working towards something.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do it to please anybody.
Sure.
So I think the perspective from which you were working is what makes it difficult, right?
Yeah.
Because even when you can't show up, you show up anyway.
Yeah.
Just because you want to be available, you want to be needed, right? And I think that's the competitive side of you that we were speaking about, that it creates this competitive person who is always trying to show that I'm here, I'm good at this, I'm worth it, you know? Yeah. So how, you spoke about relationships. So how did it impact your relationships as well, from the perspective of being this competitive person? Now you're depressed, it's affecting your mental health, right? Sure. So how did it impact your relationships, even your marriage as well, if it did?
Yeah, no, it definitely did. I think one of the things is, you know, we have a way of either lying to ourselves or sort of defending our weaknesses or our diseases, whatever we may call it. We have a way of defending a weakness, and whatever we get to defend, we get to keep. And I think for the longest, I would say to my wife, but I'm doing this guys, for you, right? I'm doing this, guys. Like me working until 3 a.m. and then waking up when you have to be busy with the kids and going back to the office. I'm doing this for you because I want better for my kids. I don't want them to have to be battling with Van Staden and doing better than Van Staden, and then because I can't afford, he gets the sport. I want them to get the sport. I want them to avoid. So, but I don't think I was doing it for them. I think that was my way of defending a culture and an identity that I had developed over the years that was unhealthy. So, because they want you more than they want the money. They want you more than they want the toy. You know, they still want to be with their dad. And this woman also fell in love with me, not with the work or the promises that I made. You see, so that was the challenge. My wife and I have been together for 8 years now. Amazing. In the 8 years, we've separated about 4 times. So she would leave and say, I'm done with you. I'll go and beg her that I'll change. I'll spend time with you. I'll do it for the first month. And then after that, I'm back doing what I love. I say what I love because I claimed to love her, but obviously it seems like I loved the idea of who I wanted to become more than her. And the other thing is how I numbed all this pain was through pornography. Because you now have a situation where you feel like no one understands you. Or I felt like no one understands me because I come from every place or every school I went to was just different. And I had to withdraw for some time. Now I have someone that accepts me for who I am, but I don't think she really does. So I withdraw. And when I withdraw, I have to still find a way to deal with my emotions and everything. So I'm looking for quick fixes because I can't spend days and hours in a counseling session or with someone. That's too much time that's going to be taken from my ambitions of becoming in the board of this particular business or being in the executive. I can't afford to lose time. So because I can't afford to lose time, I need something that is quick. I know I don't want to be addicted to drugs. I know I don't want to be addicted to alcohol. So something safer that I was exposed to in school through these rich kids was them bringing Playboy magazines and cell phones. I did not own one. Yeah, so cell phones and they are nude girls. And I remember that making me feel some release. I'm like, so that's what I'll resort to. That's what I know. The thing with that is that it's a fake pleasure. And because it's fake, you get to a place where you feel worse after that than before. So now it's no longer even me dealing with my own inner giants. Now I'm also dealing with the shame of, I know what I'm doing in secret. You know? It's the shame of me looking at this woman and I'm like, hey, when you are asleep, I do bad things that I haven't told you about, you know? It's the shame of sitting in front of you and you look at me and I'm like, hey, why are you looking at me like that? Do you know
feel like
something
people can
perhaps?
see through you. Hectic.
Yeah.
So tell me, whilst all this is happening, you're Christian.
I am very much Christian, but when I got deep into pornography, I also, with the shame, I also withdrew from the Lord God. Because now I'm like, God is holy, God is good. How do I go to Him? So no, man, no. I don't want to pray. So here's the thing with a lot of us who don't believe in God, or a lot of people who don't believe in God. Through my experience, I feel like it's not that people don't believe in God. I feel like people can see that the world is too orderly, that there has to be someone who created everything. I think people believe that. But from my experience, it comes with, but if I say I believe it, then I have to be held accountable.
Yes.
You understand? So for me, it was like I started saying, no, maybe God doesn't exist. No, there's no God. Why? Why was I doing that? Because if I said He exists, then He has to hold me accountable for pornography, for alcohol, and for all those. So it was easier to say, nah, there's no God in this world. But deep down, I know that, no, man, I couldn't have survived that accident if there was no God. Deep down, I know that I couldn't have stayed in these schools with two farm workers. There has to be someone somewhere who was, pulling some strings for me. I know when I was having that anxiety attack, I could have died. Deep down, I knew. But it was easier for me to say, nah, I don't believe in this thing anymore, you know? Yeah, because then I can get to keep my things that I did that I was not proud of. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the pornography part a bit. I'm trying to check my time. Okay. So how did it affect your marriage and your expectations of your wife? Because from what I've heard, right, as pornography generally sets those high expectations that you have with your partner because of what you're seeing.
Sure.
So to you, this is the standard, right?
Sure.
This is how things should look like. And it's also more of, I'm busy at work and I'm also releasing elsewhere, so I don't
Sure.
need you.
Sure.
So how do you think it affected your marriage and your relationship with your wife?
Okay. Yeah, for me personally, it wasn't much on expectation because when I married her, I knew that she had, she grew up in the church. She didn't have much experience, so I didn't have much expectation from her. But what it did is that it taught me to, because the person that you are sort of engaging with, looking on the screen, is not real. They are not there. They are a real person in terms of wherever they are, but here with you, they are not there, right? It then teaches you to always look for, what do I call it? Words are failing me, but you are looking for pleasure without attachment, right? Or without connection. I think that's the word I was looking for. You are looking for pleasure and fulfillment without connection. So how then that affects relationships and marriages is that you then become a person who uses the other like an object. Because remember, I'm used to looking at this object and finding pleasure
from it, yeah.
Right? So now, here's a person that truly loves me and wants me to be emotionally, spiritually, intellectually invested. And I'm just not going to do that because I'm used to objectifying and finding pleasure from objects. So I'm just going to come into the room and just want to use you for my pleasure and leave.
And that's it.
I never connected. There's no need for me to disconnect because I'm just never available. And that's where a lot of people take for granted this pornography. Even the people that think it's bad, they're like, yeah, it's bad. But they take for granted because they don't really know why they think it's bad.
Yeah.
And for me, that also translates into business, where your employees and your partners are just people that you use for your own thing. You never really build trust. You never really build genuine connections. You don't. You just learn to see people as objects for your own fulfillment.
So you're
so everything that you are doing comes from that place.
So
and
good.
It's not even intentional anymore, because what pornography does is that it rewires your brain. Because that too much dopamine, it's like an addict. You are now addicted, but you're not necessarily addicted to the pornography or the nudity. You are now addicted to the emotional aspect, what it does, what it gives you, what it promises you, the message. You are addicted to the message. And what is the message? The message is, I can have pleasure outside of connection.
Sure.
Or outside
and
of
in a marriage, that affects that, right? Because with marriage, it's more, as women especially, you're looking at, we have to be emotionally connected before we even get to the physical side. So you objectifying your wife is more like, I'm here, let's do this thing and finish. And to her, it's like, but you haven't even spoken to me the whole day. Like, you've been busy and here you are.
So
you think...
My wife used to say this thing, and I never understood it until I attended counseling sessions. She used to say, I feel like I'm sleeping with someone else.
Sure.
I'm like, what do you mean? It's me. You know me. I'm the guy you married. But basically, what she meant is, there's a person I met, and there's a person that
you've become,
that I don't really know. And that's the thing, because the me that she met was not coming to the party. I always held him back because we don't connect. So this new person, she doesn't know who it is. And is it not maybe even similar to rape in some sense? Because every night she's sleeping with someone she doesn't know. Yeah.
Sure, guys, this is a topic on its own, hey?
Sure.
But you know what? I want you to just close us off with telling us how did you then move from this aspect of your life, the addiction to pornography, the objectifying your wife, and you just being accountable as well to yourself, to your wife. So how did you move from all this?
3 things. One is correct identity, where I no longer identify myself with my past to say, hey, I'm a farm boy, or I'm a township boy, or, I stopped identifying with that past. I started identifying with who I read and what God says I am and who God says I am, right? And that accurate identification then breeds accurate manifestation. I began to manifest right because I identified myself correctly. Okay, sorry. I thought I put it on silent. Yeah, so because I identified myself accurately, I could begin to show up accurately now. And then the other thing was definitely finding my purpose. That was a game changer for me because, you said one thing, you said hard work is not the issue. It's the source. It's where it's coming from. It's the why. So when I answered my why, I began to then, chip off all these other things that are not necessary. And the last one would definitely be finding mentors and coaches, because I began to walk with other people and be accountable to other people. And that's something a lot of us men don't like. Or maybe, I don't know if I'm generalizing, but the men that I speak to often, we don't like it because we feel like accountability is something of having to subject yourself to someone dominating over you. And that's not what it really is. What it really is accepting and taking ownership that I cannot do it alone, This alone has brought me this far, but cannot take me further. I'm actually here because of this doing it alone. And what has brought me into this ditch cannot take me out. So there has to be someone up who's pulling me out. And accepting that is then the strength that I believe was able to help me become who I am today.
Amazing, Vusi.
Sure.
But tell me, how are you accountable to your wife? Because as your wife, I'd be like, so how do I know if you're no longer watching porn? I know you went for therapy, you went for counseling, but how does your wife now know that this is a thing of the past and it's not happening anymore?
She doesn't know. She trusts me, and that's what makes me stay off it even more. Because if she was prying all the time and she wants to see my phone and she wants to see everything, then that being treated like a criminal would have somehow maybe made the situation worse or made me depressed. So that's how blessed I am to have someone that just chooses to trust me. However, I do not take that for granted. For me, I have an app on my phone. I've changed because I'm trying out different apps, but I've had an app called Ever Accountable. Now and then it takes screenshots of what I'm doing and it sends it to my accountability partner. I'm trying out another one called Lead Me Not. At a certain hour of the night, it blocks certain access like TikTok and especially Twitter, because that one is a trigger for me. It's really not regulated as well as it should. And why the night is important for people that have depression and anxieties or pornography. It's because a lot of boundaries and systems of regulations are relaxed at night. So you don't want to find yourself at night just roaming around without purpose, without reason. So if you were to wake up at night to look at your phone, have a reason why you are looking at it, and look at it for that and get out. So for me, certain things are blocked at night. There is a study that was done by Harvard. The study found that a lot of people who are addicted to online shopping do it at night. And what's the reason? Because
I feel attacked.
Sorry about that. But because at night, a lot of your boundaries and accountability is just relaxed. During the day, I could say, hey, what are you doing? What's happening? You know, there's also some policing that's there. But at night, all these evils can run rampant, right? So it's very important. Then I'm even saying it to someone to say, avoid strolling in the night. And strolling might be you scrolling without purpose, you know, just strolling in the night. We know even when you stroll at night, some areas, you know, thieves are waiting to pounce on you. Well, even on social media, there are people that set advertisement just for you at that time. So I have all those, and I have someone that I speak to. If they see something suspicious, they speak to me. But also my wife has has access to all my social media accounts. Maybe that's why then she doesn't feel she has to check on me, right? Maybe that's why. She can log in. If I leave my phone, I don't run back to fetch it, you know. So yeah, that's what's currently happening.
That's amazing. Accountability is definitely a way to come out of certain situations. But yeah, it was amazing having you. But before we let you go, please just tell us, what does living in fullness mean to you? What is to live in fullness?
To live in fullness, for me, is to live to God's expectations of you. And why that is important for me is because I was living to other people's expectations. But remember, if you create this mic and then it tells you that it wants to live, I think it's a Shaw mic. If it tells me that it wants to live to the expectations of Amplify or of another brand, then it's not living to its fullness, because only the one that created this brand knows what it's capable of, right? Because the other brand might be limiting its capabilities, while other brands might actually be stretching it even to the point where they might be tearing it apart. But the one that created the brand knows exactly what it's capable of. And for me, living to my fullness is now saying, who has created me? And what do they think I'm capable of? And that's all I care about. Because to think anything above that is pride, but also to think anything below that is pride, because I think I know better than the one that created me. I don't. Sure.
When you have a speaker on the platform. I didn't tell him about this, by the way. He literally started using everything in this room for this example. But thank you so much for coming, Vusi. It was amazing having you on, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that the viewers learned out there. So thank you for showing up.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yay. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. I'm going to put Vusi's social media platforms as well, and everywhere that you can follow him in the description box. So please do follow and get the content that you deserve and that you need.